Welcome to Stories with Gaming, where drama meets gameplay. From outrageous family secrets to quiet revenge, toxic friendships to moments of redemption, we cover it all, straight from Reddit's wildest threads. While the story unfolds, you'll see gameplay in the background, sometimes intense, sometimes chill, but always a perfect match for the chaos or calm of each tale. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for your daily update. You never really expect your life to fall apart over dinner. Not when everything feels finally, okay. Elena and I had been together for 8 months at that point. 8 months of laughter, quiet mornings, hospital coffee, late-night drives, and a kind of peace I never thought I'd earn. She worked as a pediatric nurse at a children's clinic in Portland, Oregon. Brilliant, kind, steady. The kind of person who believes even the worst people have a chance to change. That, as it turns out, was her only real flaw. The night everything started unraveling was supposed to be just a simple dinner. A small family gathering at my Aunt Lisa and Uncle Mark's estate outside Eugene. It was Marissa, my cousin, technically Caleb's sister, who finally talked me into it. "You've got to rip the Band-Aid off sometime," she said. "You can't keep Elena a secret forever." She meant well. Marissa was one of the few in our family who had any sort of clarity when it came to Caleb. She remembered what he did to her cat when we were kids, the way he lied, manipulated, tore things apart just for the thrill of watching them fall. But even she had started to hope, naively, that maybe adulthood had mellowed him out. It hadn't. That night, from the second Elena walked through the door, Caleb turned into a different person. He practically shoved Aunt Lisa aside to be the first to greet her, wrapping her in a hug that lasted just a beat too long enough for her to pull away, laughing nervously. He clung to her attention like a child starved of affection, making inside jokes that didn't exist and laughing too loudly at things she didn't say. At dinner, he maneuvered past me, literally shoved me twice to sit beside her. He kept brushing her shoulder accidentally, leaned in way too close when he spoke, and then he tried to feed her a bite of his dessert off his own fork. He made eye contact with her while doing it. Intense, possessive. Elena stiffened. She gave him a polite laugh, the kind that women learn to perfect for moments exactly like this. Then she gently declined and shifted her chair closer to mine. The entire time, Caleb kept launching into these ridiculous stories about me from our childhood. Most of them fabricated. Some were twisted versions of the truth, like how I supposedly bullied my high school girlfriend so badly that he had to rescue her from me. Elena knew they weren't true. I'd told her everything about those years, the ugly parts too. Still, my aunt and uncle just nodded along, sipping wine, acting like Caleb was telling bedtime stories. Later, while I helped Uncle Mark move boxes in the garage, I noticed something. I hadn't seen Elena in a while. Something in my chest tightened. I walked back through the house, into the kitchen, and froze. There she was, pressed against the counter. Caleb had one hand on the edge, blocking her in, and the other gesturing dramatically while he talked about how she deserved someone more thrilling than my emotionally stunted older cousin. Elena had already told him to back off. Twice. I could see the strain in her shoulders, the fear in her eyes. She looked up and saw me, and her whole body shifted. Relief. She walked straight to me, brushing past Caleb without a word. He laughed. "What? You think I'm serious?" he said, like it was all some big joke. But Elena was trembling. Let me back up a little. I grew up in a picturesque little town in Oregon that looks great on postcards but feels like a snow globe. Pretty, fragile, and a little suffocating. Our family was upper middle class. My aunt and uncle, both in real estate, obsessed over image. Caleb, their golden child, could do no wrong. I, the older cousin by 3 years, was the shadow they always told him he could step out of. He broke my stuff, lied constantly, killed my pet hamster when we were 12, fed it chocolate on purpose. But it was always me who didn't share or wasn't paying attention. That pattern never changed. Caleb stayed in town after high school, working at Uncle Mark's real estate firm, freeloading and flexing. I moved out and tried to build a life elsewhere. Every girlfriend I brought around, Caleb found a way to get involved. One he told I had a gambling problem. Another, that I cheated on every partner I'd ever had. All lies. My aunt and uncle always found a way to spin it. "He's just protective," Lisa would say. Or worse, you're overreacting. When I met Elena, I made a decision. No family introductions. Not right away. She was too important to me to throw into that pit. I kept her separate, quiet, safe, until she convinced me otherwise. "They're your family," she said with a gentle smile. "Maybe now that you're adults, it'll be different." She believed in people. That was her gift and her curse. Things got worse after that dinner. At first, it was just phone calls. Numbers Elena didn't recognize. She'd answer, nothing but heavy breathing, or silence. Then voicemails. Accusatory, vulgar messages calling her frigid, a tease, or worse. Some mentioned the color of her scrubs. One described her exact route to work. That's when I knew. I recognized the voices. Not Caleb's, but his old crew. Guys who still circled him like hyenas, drawn to his money and chaos. Guys who never grew up. Guys who would do what Caleb told them, no questions asked. We blocked numbers. They found new ones. We went to the clinic director, who was supportive but limited. Security footage confirmed a group of men lingering in the pediatric wing for hours. They weren't visiting anyone. They were watching Elena. Then, one night, one of them followed her to her car. She called me from the parking lot, crying so hard I could barely understand her. Too scared to drive. I picked her up while my friend followed us home just to make sure we weren't being tailed. Elena started having panic attacks before work. She lost weight, couldn't sleep, and through it all, Caleb kept denying it. I finally snapped. I showed up at the estate. Caleb answered the door with that smug grin he always wore when he thought he was untouchable. I showed him everything. Voicemails, screenshots, clinic footage, even witness statements. He smirked. Then he said, maybe if Elena wasn't such a stuck-up bitch, people wouldn't feel the need to teach her a lesson. I punched him. Just once. A clean hit to the jaw. Not enough to break anything, but enough to knock the smirk off his face. He screamed like I'd stabbed him. Aunt Lisa came running, crying hysterically. Uncle Mark started yelling about how I'd always been violent, unstable, jealous. They didn't even look at the evidence. Lisa said Elena had probably flirted with Caleb at dinner and was now embarrassed. Mark told me I was no longer welcome in their home. I left. Elena's apartment became my home that night. She cried for hours, curled up in bed, afraid to go back to the job she loved. All because my cousin, a man our family had spent decades making excuses for, had decided he was entitled to her. The cops? Useless. We brought them everything. But once they found out one of Caleb's friends was the son of a sheriff's deputy, the tone changed. They said there was no direct link to Caleb. One officer actually asked Elena if she might have encouraged the attention. They issued warnings to the men on camera. That's it. My aunt and uncle doubled down. They said going to the police was proof we were trying to destroy Caleb's future. They said Elena was making things up. The worst part? They called it a family misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, and yet we gave them one more chance. Aunt Lisa called, crying, said Caleb wanted to apologize, said they were ready to set boundaries. Elena was skeptical. So was I, but hope is a seductive thing. We went to their house. It was an ambush. The house was full. Caleb, Mark, and Lisa, even Tyler, and two of the guys from the clinic. They called it a family intervention. They attacked Elena's character. Said she misread the signals. Said she was too emotional. Said working with sick kids was probably warping her judgment. When she showed them evidence, they dismissed it. When Tyler described what she wore to work on specific days as proof of attention-seeking, they nodded in agreement. When Elena had a panic attack and left the room, Lisa grabbed my arm. "You need to choose," she said, "between your real family and a girl who's ruining everything." I chose Elena, and I never looked back. Trauma doesn't explode at once. It creeps. It coils. It lurks in the quiet moments when you're just trying to make it through another normal day. For a little while after we walked out of my aunt and uncle's intervention ambush, Elena and I tried to stabilize. We made lists. We filed complaints. We scheduled meetings with hospital security. We even got a lawyer. But reality doesn't respond to logic when the people behind your pain are protected by influence and denial. Elena still had to go to work at the children's clinic. Still had to walk past the front desk, knowing that one of Caleb's friends might be loitering down the hallway. Still had to keep her face composed while terrified parents handed over their kids for care. The panic attacks got worse. And then came Marissa's wedding invite. Marissa, my cousin and the only member of my extended family who had stood by us through all of this. She'd been warning people about Caleb for years, ever since she caught him hurting her cat when we were kids. Her parents hadn't believed her either, not really. Caleb was troubled, just high energy, needs structure. She knew better. The wedding was small, held at an old vineyard near Bend, Oregon. A spring ceremony, draped in soft light and good intentions. When Marissa called to personally invite us, she swore Caleb wouldn't be anywhere near us. He's only invited because my dad insisted, she said. I've hired security. You'll be at the in-laws table on the opposite side of the reception hall. I swear, he won't get near Elena. After talking it over, Alina and I agreed to go. She missed being around good people. Missed family in the way that only someone with no real one of their own does. For the first hour or two, it was fine. The ceremony was beautiful. Marissa was glowing. Dylan, her now husband, was teary-eyed and gentle. Elena smiled for the first time in weeks. She even danced a little, her movements soft but confident in the safety of the space. We should have left then. Around 9 p.m., Elena excused herself to use the restroom. 10 minutes passed. I glanced across the room. Caleb was no longer at the family table. Something inside me snapped awake. I pushed back my chair and walked briskly through the reception hall toward the hallway that led to the restrooms. That's when I heard her scream. I broke into a sprint, rounded the corner, and froze. Caleb had Elena pinned against the wall. One hand was clamped over her mouth, the other twisted around her upper arm, holding her in place. Her dress was torn at the shoulder, and I could already see bruises forming along her skin. She was struggling, desperately. Dylan and his brother Jake, a police officer from Spokane, were already there, pulling Caleb off her with force. Elena fell to her knees, sobbing. Caleb, drunk and snarling, started shouting that she had lured him there, that she wanted it, that she'd followed him. No one ever believes me, he bellowed, fists clenched, spit flying. She's a goddamn tease, always has been. Jake pulled out his phone and called the county sheriff directly. Security arrived, followed by a few guests who had heard the commotion. Marissa came running, her veil slipping down her back, followed by her mother, who clutched her chest like the sight of Caleb behaving like this was somehow shocking. Elena was taken to a private suite in the venue to rest, while Marissa brought water, tissues, and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. I stood in the hallway, shaking with rage. When the deputies arrived, Aunt Lisa tried to intercept them. She's exaggerating, she cried. This is all a misunderstanding. She probably led him on again. Uncle Mark, red-faced and reeking of scotch, tried to physically block the officers from handcuffing Caleb. You're ruining a man's life over nothing, he roared. Caleb, now sobbing, began wailing about betrayal, about how we'd all misunderstood him, about how Elena was a liar. Then, as they walked him to the squad car, he screamed over his shoulder, "She wanted it! Since the first time I saw her, she's been begging for it." Guests had pulled out their phones. They recorded everything. In the days that followed, our world collapsed and reassembled, piece by jagged piece. My aunt and uncle went full scorched earth. They started calling extended family members to clarify what had happened, claimed Alina had seduced Caleb and cried assault when he didn't return her affection, said she was vengeful, said she staged the bruises. They even claimed Dylan and Jake had roughed Caleb up before the police arrived. We were done playing nice. The wedding video clearly showed Caleb following Elena down the hall. Her torn dress, her injuries, witnesses. Video of his arrest, his confession. Our lawyer said it was airtight. Then came the calls. Lisa sobbing into the phone, saying we were tearing the family apart. Mark threatening to ruin my career and strip me of every penny of inheritance if Elena didn't drop the charges. They showed up at my apartment screaming in the street until the neighbors called the police. That night, Elena said quietly, "I can't do this anymore." And I agreed. We accepted the job offer she had in another city, 300 miles north. A fresh start. Elena would be working at a new children's hospital. I'd continue remote work with my software company. We found a small house near a lake, quiet, surrounded by trees. For the first time in a long time, we both exhaled. Marissa visited a week later with Dylan. She hugged Elena tight and promised us that not everyone in the family believed Caleb's lies. She was even working with our lawyer to provide a witness statement from the wedding. But the damage was done. Caleb was behind bars, for now. But the rot that had infected my family for decades had finally reached the surface. Uncle Mark and Aunt Lisa never came to terms with it. They kept spinning stories, kept blaming everyone else, the kind of people who would rather protect a monster than admit they raised one. 4 years later, I got the call. It was a voicemail from Lisa, sobbing. I didn't recognize the number. She'd clearly changed phones again, but her voice was unmistakable. I called back. Her words tumbled out like floodwater. Caleb had gotten married the previous year. A woman named Natalie. They met at church. It was a quick marriage, orchestrated by their families. And now, Natalie was in the hospital. 2 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, bruises on her legs, arms, and face. Caleb had been abusing her for months, and Uncle Mark had been helping him cover it up, just like he did with us. Natalie had finally told the truth, to her coworker, to the police, to her parents. And when they investigated, they found everything. Voicemails, threats, hospital records, witness intimidation. Uncle Mark had been leaning on his business connections to keep it quiet, threatening Natalie's job, her family's mortgage, spinning stories about her instability. Same playbook, same horror. Only this time, it didn't work. Caleb and Uncle Mark were arrested. Lisa begged me to come home. They need you, she said. They're family. I laughed. Then I said something I'd wanted to say for years. You chose him over me. Over Elena. Over everyone he hurt. You don't get to cry now. No. I hung up and blocked her number. Elena and I now live in peace. We married 2 years ago. Bought a home. She's head pediatric nurse at her new hospital. I got promoted to senior developer. We have a daughter, Emma. She's 3 months old. When I look at her, I know the cycle ends here. Emma will never meet Caleb. She'll never have to listen to her family gaslight her into silence. The sickness stops with us. We cut out the rot. We survived. Peace is never just silence. It's earned, rebuilt, and protected. And after everything Elena and I went through, the quiet we finally found felt sacred. We left the noise behind. The whispers, the doubt, the shame other people tried to plant in us like weeds. And for the first time, we were able to live without looking over our shoulders. Elena settled into her new role at the Children's Hospital. She became director of pediatric nursing within her 2nd year. Her calm, thoughtful presence turned her department into a place where nurses actually felt supported and kids were treated like humans, not just patients. I kept working remotely in software, eventually moving into a lead architect position. We bought a small home near a wooded area just outside Olympia, Washington. Mornings smelled like pine and wet soil. Evenings were quiet enough to hear the frogs in the distance. No more drama, no more random texts, just us. Still, trauma doesn't follow the rules of time. Every now and then, Elena would jump if the doorbell rang after dark. I would have nightmares about seeing Caleb's face at our window. And sometimes, even the smell of certain colognes, the kind his friends used to wear, would send Elena into a cold, locked stare that would take minutes to shake. But we were healing. And then, out of nowhere, Lisa called. The number was new. She left a voicemail, her voice jagged with hysteria, gasping for air between sobs. Elijah, please. It's your cousin Caleb. Something's happened. Please call me back. My chest tightened. I hadn't heard her voice in 4 years. I sat with the phone in my hand for nearly 10 minutes. Then I called. She answered immediately, breathless, her tone flitting between panic and pleading. Caleb had gotten married a year ago, to a woman named Natalie. They met through church. Her family knew ours. It was quick, like most things in Caleb's life. Instant connection, zero reflection. Lisa had called it a God-arranged match. I stayed silent as she spoke. Last Thursday, Natalie's coworker had called the police after she didn't show up for 3 shifts in a row. The responding officers found her in their apartment, bruised, semi-conscious, with 2 fractured ribs and a dislocated shoulder. Caleb had beaten her so badly she couldn't even move. When the officers dug deeper, the entire nightmare unraveled. Natalie had been enduring months of abuse. It started with yelling. Then came the manipulation, isolation, emotional blackmail, physical violence. And every time she threatened to leave, Uncle Mark would intervene. He told her family she was unstable, that she was making things up. He threatened to call in favors with her employer, a company owned by one of his golf buddies, to have her let go. He warned her parents that her allegations could cost them their home, their standing in the community. He told Natalie to pray harder and respect her vows. Sound familiar? That's when I exploded. I told Lisa everything I'd buried for years. I reminded her that she'd stood by while Caleb stalked Elena, that she dismissed every piece of evidence, that she tried to make Elena out to be some kind of homewrecker, even as she cried on the bathroom floor. I reminded her that she and Mark staged a whole intervention to gaslight us, while Caleb's friends described Elena's outfits in creepy detail, and no one seemed to find that alarming. "You built him," I said. "You looked at a house on fire and handed it more matches." Lisa cried harder. She said she knew, that she'd known for years. But they thought they were protecting the family. I hung up and blocked her number. Again. A week later, Marissa called. She'd been keeping an eye on everything from a distance. Lisa had moved out of the house, filed for divorce. Mark was now under criminal investigation for witness intimidation, and his real estate license had been suspended. Natalie was living with her sister in Spokane. She'd filed for divorce, was in trauma therapy, and was cooperating fully with prosecutors. And the most unexpected part? Several of Caleb's exes had come forward, including 2 women from his old church. One said he stalked her for months. Another said he tried to isolate her from her friends and family, then gaslit her into thinking she was mentally unstable. Now they were building a bigger case. 6 months later, the first round of charges landed. Caleb took a plea deal, 8 years in prison for aggravated domestic violence, with the possibility of parole after 5. Natalie's testimony, along with photographic evidence, security footage, and multiple witness statements, made any kind of defense impossible. He was remorseless in court, still playing the victim, still saying the women led him on. The judge didn't buy it. As for Mark, he was still awaiting trial, facing charges for obstruction of justice and witness intimidation. I can't say I felt joy. It wasn't that simple. What I felt was closure and exhaustion. Then came Lisa's letter. 12 handwritten pages. Apologies, confessions, reflections. She admitted she'd known for years that Caleb was off. Said she and Mark had ignored signs, that they convinced themselves they were protecting him, when in reality, they were just protecting their egos. She apologized for gaslighting me, for dismissing Elena, for treating Caleb's victims like liars or emotional liabilities. She admitted that her silence wasn't neutral. It was participation. Elena and I sat at the kitchen table reading it, trading off pages. When we finished, neither of us spoke for a long time. I wanted to believe she meant it, but part of me couldn't forget. Where was this version of Lisa when Elena was being followed in parking lots? Where was she when Caleb pinned her against a wall at Marissa's wedding? When she sided with a predator over her own flesh and blood? Elena said it best. Redemption isn't for us to deny her, but access is. We've agreed to revisit the idea of limited, supervised contact between Lisa and Emma, our daughter, but that's years down the road. And only if Lisa continues therapy, accountability, and full transparency. Forgiveness isn't a key to the front door. It's a fence you have to climb. Slowly, honestly, painfully. Meanwhile, Natalie has stayed in touch with us through Marissa. She's healing. She's working with domestic violence advocacy groups. Her family, devastated by their own delay in believing her, has gone all in on supporting her now. They've even begun organizing seminars at local churches about the signs of coercive control and emotional abuse. And as strange as it may seem, there's something beautiful in that. In pain that doesn't just sit there rotting, but turns into something useful, something that might save someone else. Elena and I know that feeling well. As for us, we're good. Really, truly good. Our daughter Emma is 4 months old now. She's got Elena's eyes and my weird laugh. She loves bath time and hates loud noises. She's growing faster than we imagined. And every day I look at her, I remember what we left behind so she could have something better. A legacy of safety, not survival. A family of choice, not coercion. A life that began the moment we stopped asking broken people to heal themselves for our benefit. They say breaking generational cycles is hard. What they don't say is how quiet it can be once you finally do. No fireworks, no grand cinematic redemption, just a new morning that feels light. A house that doesn't creak with tension, a phone that doesn't buzz with threats or guilt trips, a silence that finally feels safe. That's the life Elena and I built and fiercely protect for our daughter. Emma's almost a year old now. Her first word was dog, and she says it with a level of conviction like it's the only noun that matters. She loves bananas, hates wearing socks, wakes us up at dawn by babbling to herself in her crib and demanding attention with a triumphant laugh. She's everything. And she'll never know what it feels like to have her boundaries dismissed in the name of family. After Caleb's sentencing, things moved quickly. Mark, my uncle, was convicted of 2 felony counts: obstruction of justice and conspiracy to intimidate a witness. His plea deal shaved some time off, but not enough to walk away clean. His real estate license was permanently revoked. His network, once full of powerful friends, vanished overnight. Turns out, people are loyal until you become a liability. Lisa followed through on the divorce. She moved into a condo on the other side of town and started weekly therapy. According to Marissa, she also joined a support group for enablers of abusive family members. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it makes sense. There are always people behind the abusers, holding up the scaffolding, patching the cracks. We didn't respond to her letter right away. It sat in our kitchen drawer for nearly 3 months, folded neatly in its original envelope, heavy with apologies. Eventually, Elena and I wrote back. We didn't offer forgiveness. Not outright. We offered honesty. Boundaries. Conditions. If Lisa wanted any future with us, it would start with acknowledging not just her role in the past, but the work she needed to do moving forward. She'd have no access to Emma unless we agreed, and only under our terms. She replied within a week. No defensiveness, no manipulation, just gratitude. She's playing by the rules. So far. That doesn't erase anything, but it's a start. Natalie's journey has been incredible to witness. She and Elena now talk regularly. Their shared trauma built a bond neither of them asked for, but one they've both nurtured into something almost sacred. Not friendship, exactly. Something deeper. Survivor kinship. Natalie recently became a speaker for a statewide domestic violence prevention organization. She gives talks to churches, hospitals, and community centers. She doesn't sugarcoat anything. She tells them how easily abuse hides behind charm. How quickly people dismiss red flags if the person waving them is wearing a nice suit and calling your daughter special. Her voice shakes sometimes when she speaks, but she speaks anyway. Elena went to one of her talks last month. She came home quiet, sat down on the couch beside me, and said, "She's gonna save people." I believe it. Marissa, as always, remains the rock. Her wedding, hijacked and turned into a battleground, was never really the beginning of the end. It was the point where the truth stopped whispering and started screaming. She never flinched. She and Dylan now host monthly dinners for family refugees, friends and relatives who've had to go low or no contact with toxic kin. It's potluck style, casual, filled with laughter and dark humor. The kind of room where people finish each other's sentences with, "Right? Mine did that too." Healing has a rhythm, and it often sounds like shared stories over too many carbs. As for me, I've started something new. After years of remote software work, I launched my own consulting firm. Small, but growing. I help nonprofits and advocacy groups build secure systems, especially those working with domestic violence survivors. Some need encrypted platforms. Others need discrete databases for anonymous reporting. I offer steep discounts to the orgs that helped us when we were in the thick of it. It feels like coming full circle, using the skills I honed in silence to now amplify voices that deserve to be heard. Every so often, people ask why I didn't just reconcile with my family, why I didn't forgive and move on, why I'm still cautious, even with those who've apologized. Here's what I say. Forgiveness without accountability is just permission for them to do it again. Reconciliation isn't a reward, it's a responsibility. And peace isn't passive. You have to build it. Brick by brick, fence by fence, boundary by boundary. Emma won't grow up learning to excuse abuse in the name of love. She'll know that love isn't loud and dramatic. It's consistent, respectful, earned. She'll know that her voice matters, that no means no. That gaslighting isn't a misunderstanding. It's control. And she'll know that family isn't who shares your DNA. It's who shows up, listens, learns, and chooses better. We still get the occasional card from a distant aunt or cousin trying to keep the peace. We file them away. not out of cruelty, but clarity. Not everyone needs to be part of your healing to witness it. This is where our story ends and where our life continues. In a quiet house, in a safe neighborhood, with a daughter who will never know the name Caleb beyond the lessons we'll eventually teach her about standing up, speaking out, and never shrinking to make others comfortable. The cycle is broken. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. If you want to share your stories, please comment below. Additionally, what is your opinion on the poster's decision?